Hey y'all, it's Heather here with Underwater Panther, and today's video is about the asymmetry between modern relationships between men and women, why romance is more dangerous for women now, why men can prioritize themselves with less immediate cost, real risk women mistaking care for security, modern correction, what it looks like. And we're going to be talking about why men are deferring commitment, split identity, and the extraction economy. So, there is a quiet asymmetry running through modern relationships that most people can feel but struggle to articulate. It isn't about good intentions or bad people. It isn't about men versus women. It's about how two different developmental tracks, shaped by different risk, rewards, and consequences, collide inside intimacy. Many women are still trained to think in terms of continuity, holding systems together, preserving emotional stability, investing early for a future that doesn't yet exist. So I did just record and I'm currently uploading a video on the developmental arc in age stages between men and women, how they are developed in very early age throughout adolescence and into adulthood, how men and women are trained into their masculine and feminine, and the lack of integration in individuals of their own masculine and feminine. So do check out that video. It is a good ground reference, foundational reference to what I am talking about in this video. So many men are still trained to think in terms of autonomy, protecting optionality, minimizing exposure, and securing advantage before committing. When those two orientations meet inside romance, the outcome isn't confusion, it's imbalance. Women tend to invest first, men tend to wait and evaluate. Women stabilize and men benefit from stability, and the cost of miscalculation fall unevenly. That asymmetry is what makes modern romance feel increasingly unsafe for women and increasingly hollow for men. All right, so I think I did two openers for some reason. All right, so when these two operating systems meet, the outcome is not mysterious. Women tend to invest first, emotionally, domestically, biologically, and logistically. Men tend to evaluate while benefiting from that investment. Women stabilize environments, and men extract value from stability without necessarily committing to maintain it. All right, so why romance is more dangerous for women now. Romance becomes dangerous when it accelerates vulnerability before reality has been verified. Specifically, romance becomes a liability when it leads a woman to merge finances, cohabitate, get pregnant, reduce work hours, relocate away from support systems, or tolerate ambiguity longer than she should before there is formal commitment, demonstrated provision, or enforceable accountability. Each of these steps reduces a woman's exit capital, her financial flexibility narrows, her mobility decreases, her bargaining position weakens, her tolerance for instability must drop, even if the relationship itself has not stabilized. In earlier generations, these risks were often buffered by extended family, single income viability, stronger community enforcement, or cultural norms that pressured men to remain. In 2026 conditions, housing costs, childcare expenses, healthcare instability, legal delays, those buffers are largely gone. There is far less room now for learning the hard way. A single miscalculation can have long-term financial and psychological consequences, especially for women with children. Why men can prioritize themselves with less immediate cost. Many men are able to delay responsibility longer, not because they are stronger or wiser, but because the cost of delay is often deferred onto others. Men do not bear the biological risk of pregnancy. They can exit relationships without immediate bodily or economic consequences. Legal systems often define responsibility in minimal terms, allowing technical compliance to substitute for real engagement. And when instability occurs, women frequently absorb the gap to protect children, preserve routines, and prevent collapse. This allows men to remain in a self first orientation longer while still appearing socially intact. They can pursue money, freedom, or optionality while the downstream costs of instability are quietly managed by someone else. The real risk: women mistakenly care for security. One of the most dangerous confusions in modern dating is the belief that care equals security. A man can be affectionate, attentive, emotionally expressive, fun, attracted, and verbally committed and still be structurally unsafe. None of those traits guarantee stability, provision, or follow through under pressure. Security is not how someone feels in moments of connection. Security is how consistently they show up when things are inconvenient, expensive, boring, or hard. Real security looks like planning, provision that materially changes outcomes, reliability over time, accountability without prompting, and clarity before exposure. It is proactive, not reactive. It reduces risk rather than redistributing it. Women are harmed when romance convinces them that emotional warmth equals structural reliability. That assumption used to be survivable, it no longer is. What the modern correction looks like. So that means verifying stability before merging lives, requiring clarity before pregnancy, enforcing boundaries early instead of negotiating them later under pressure, refusing to overfunction in order to keep love, distinguishing future talk from actual commitment, and rejecting minimal compliance when it is framed as care. This isn't distrust, it is discernment. Men who are capable of partnership are not offended by structure. They don't interpret boundaries as hostility. They understand that clarity protects everyone involved. Men who resist structure are not reacting to mistrust. They are reacting to loss of leverage. Romance without structure is now a liability for women, and men who want access to women without building structure are not partners, they are consumers. It's called extraction. That is not bitterness, that is reality. All right, so I want to get into deferred commitment, split identity, and the extraction economy. So there is a pattern repeating across relationships right now that women often feel long before they can articulate it. Men want access to the benefits of partnership and family while deferring or avoiding the commitments that make those things safe. Commitment gets delayed, risk gets front loaded onto women, responsibility gets reduced to technical compliance, and extraction gets dressed up as maturity. All right. So what makes this pattern so destructive is that it's built on asymmetry. The risk lands first on the woman. Pregnancy, decreased mobility, decreased earning power, increased dependence, and increased vulnerability. The man remains optional. He can still leave, he can still renegotiate, he can still minimize. And when the structure is designed this way, the woman becomes the stabilizer by default while the man keeps his exits open. That isn't love taking time, that is leverage. The internal rationalizations men use before making that demand. So these are not excuses, they are scripts that make extraction feel reasonable to him. The first rationalization is I'm being responsible, not avoiding commitment. In this frame, delay gets reframed as maturity. Marriage becomes risky. Pregnancy becomes natural. And living together becomes practical. He tells himself he's being careful, but what's actually happening is that responsibility gets redefined as protecting himself rather than securing the family he is actively creating. He positions himself as cautious while asking you to front load irreversible risk. The second rationalization is marriage does not guarantee anything anyway. This is a cognitive flattening move that treats legal, financial, and social commitment as symbolic or meaningless. He ignores the default protections marriage provides, the leverage it offers in housing and family continuity, and the reality that formal commitment changes behavior because it changes stakes. The contradiction is obvious. He accepts guarantees when they benefit him, domestic stability, sexual access, and lineage, while dismissing guarantees when they protect you. The third rationalization is women control children anyway. This one is massive and rarely spoken plainly. He convinces himself she'll raise the child regardless. The system will back her up and his presence is optional. This reduces moral pressure to fully show up because he frames himself as supplemental rather than essential. He begins to relate to fatherhood as a contribution he can choose, not a responsibility that exists regardless of his feelings. The fourth rationalization is if it works out, I'll commit later. This treats commitment as a reward for performance rather than a prerequisite for creation. The child becomes a trial run, cohabitation becomes a test phase, and marriage becomes a bonus outcome. That is not family formation, it is consumer logic applied to human life. The woman is asked to take the irreversible risk while the man retains the right to decide whether the arrangement is worth formalizing. The fifth rationalization is I'm already doing enough. This is where minimal compliance becomes moral cover. Paying something becomes I'm responsible. Showing up occasionally becomes I'm involved. Avoiding total abandonment becomes I'm a good guy. It allows him to feel righteous while avoiding full obligation. The bar gets lowered until he can clear it easily and still claim virtue. The financial and legal risk women underestimate in this setup, where the cost becomes real. The first risk is that pregnancy is an irreversible asset transfer. Once pregnant, your earning power drops, your mobility drops, your bargaining position drops, and your risk tolerance must drop. Even in healthy relationships, pregnancy shifts the entire economic and biological burden onto the mother first. Meanwhile, his optionality increases because he can still leave without a bodily consequence. There is no equivalent male downside at this stage. That imbalance is the core vulnerability women underestimate. The second risk is the cohabitation creates obligation without protection. Living together can feel like partnership, but it offers no automatic financial safeguard, no inheritance rights, no shared asset protection, and no presumption of support. You can be doing level labor with roommate level security. Cohabitation can quietly lock a woman into domestic extraction without granting the protections that make family survivable under stress. The third risk is that child support is not provision. Women consistently underestimate how little child support actually covers, especially now. $40 to $200 a week does not cover housing, childcare, healthcare, or lost income. It barely offsets groceries, and that's before inflation, emergencies, and the time cost of parenting. Enforcement also requires money you do not have, time you don't have, and emotional bandwidth you do not have. So the system quietly relies on the mother to absorb the gap. The fourth risk is that legal delay becomes structural delay. Every month without formal commitment strengthens his claim of status quo, weakens your negotiating position, increases sunk costs, and normalizes imbalance. By the time marriage is discussed again, the leverage is gone, and the woman is already anchored by responsibility while the man still has exit options. This is why we can talk about marriage later as not neutral, it is structural. The fifth risk is that you become the system. When the relationship dissolves, the mother becomes the parent, the planner, the stabilizer, and the financial shock absorber. The man becomes the supporting role who claims he is doing his duty. This is the default outcome when commitment is delayed until after extraction. Deferred commitment is not responsibility. Deferred commitment is not responsibility. It is risk allocation. Responsibility means securing what you create before it becomes vulnerable. Not after, not maybe, not if it works out. A man who asks for pregnancy before marriage is not being cautious. He is asking a woman to stake her body, time, and future while he keeps his exits open. That is not leadership, that is leverage. Compliance is not care. Minimal support is not provision. Presence without protection is not partnership. If a man needs a woman to absorb irreversible risk before he decides whether she's worth committing to, he has already answered the question. Commitment delayed until after extraction is not commitment at all. If the risk is front loaded onto you and the reward is back loaded for him, the structure is already broken. You do not need more patience. You do not need better communication. You need alignment before exposure. A 60 to 90-day dating filter. Built for women with limited margin, not paranoia, structural discernment. The first filter is the commitment timing test. Ask casually, what does commitment look like to you before kids? A man who is serious answers clearly and doesn't hedge endlessly. He can speak to marriage or formal commitment without acting like you're threatening him. Now, the key here is a lot of men will say what you want to hear. Never let your boundaries be crossed. Never move in with the man. Don't have his children before marriage. All of this needs to be pre-organized and done. A man who says, let's see how it goes, marriage is just paper, kids change everything anyway, or why rush labels is signaling that he wants outcomes without obligation. The second filter is risk distribution. Watch who absorbs consequences when things go wrong. A man who intends to build talks about contingencies, planning, protection, and provision. A man who expects women to absorb downside says, people figure it out. The system will help. Women are stronger. Or my mom did that alone. It's fine. That's not admiration. That is outsourcing. The third filter is language around responsibility. A man with internal duty defines responsibility as securing others and doesn't need praise for basics. A man with compliance morality says, I do my part, I'm not abandoning anyone, I pay what I'm supposed to, or I'm doing more than most guys. That is minimum framed as virtue. The fourth filter is authority versus accountability. A man who can lead without controlling, respects boundaries, and isn't threatened by clarity. A man who wants control without obligation, complains about courts, women, and laws, claims men have no power, or resents child support before he even has children. That's not adult leadership, that's grievance as identity. The fifth filter is consistency under mild pressure. Apply light pressure early. Reschedule once, say no once, ask for clarity once. A stable man adapts and stays present. An avoidant man withdraws, gets angry, stonewalls, or says you're doing too much. Men who collapse under small boundaries collapse under real responsibility. The sixth filter is future talk reality. When he talks about his life, he is describing a life he carries or a life that happens to him. Green flags sound like I will and include concrete steps and sacrifice. Red flags sound like if, maybe, someday, with no specifics and children framed as abstract ideas. That's benefits without load. The phrases that signal the pattern. So if you hear repeated deferred commitment phrases like, let's live together first, marriage doesn't change anything, kids are a bigger commitment than marriage. I get it now. Kids are a bigger commitment than marriage. Yeah, to a man. Wonder why. Front loading. Or I don't believe in rushing. The internal logic is simple: access before obligation. If you hear compliances framed as care, I'm doing my responsibilities. I pay what the court says. I show up when I can. I'm not a deadbeat. The internal logic is minimum equals more moral credit. If you hear responsibility aversion disguised as wisdom, the system screws men. Marriage is a trap. Men have no rights. Why commit when women leave anyway? The internal logic is upside without exposure. If you hear extraction logic, women control kids anyway. You would get custody. It is your body, your choice. Women are more nurturing. The internal logic is externalized cost, then disengagement. And if you hear fake masculinity signaling, obsession with dominance and high value, talk without actual provision, resentment towards women while demanding access, I gotta sneeze. Ew, excuse me. The internal logic is externalized cost. Okay. I lost my spot. All right, so if you hear fake masculinity signaling, obsession with dominance and high value talk, I'm an alpha, screaming he's an alpha. Resentment towards women while demanding access. The internal logic is power without responsibility. So why control doesn't fix it anyway? The tell that destroys the whole narrative. I need a drink. Here's the truth that collapses the men disengage because they lack control story. Even when men believe they have control, they still cheat, stay unhappy, and blame everyone else. That proves the issue was never control. So they want to control outcomes. They want to feel like they're, respected while paying 50-50, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It was internal fragmentation. A man saying, I don't have control over outcomes often means I don't feel coherent inside and I'm trying to fix that externally. So even when finances are 50-50, even when a woman is carrying emotional and domestic labor, even when he has freedom, access, options, and leverage, the emptiness does not go away. External control cannot repair internal split. A fragmented man mistakes stimulation for fulfillment, novelty for aliveness, entitlement for agency, and blame for relief. He externalizes discomfort because he cannot tolerate being the cause of his own dissatisfaction. That's why he keeps extracting. Extraction is regulation for a split self. And that is why women feel more mature. Motherhood forces integration. Men can delay it indefinitely. So, what this means for women: if a man needs you to absorb irreversible risk before he offers protection, that is not love taking time. That is a structure built to benefit him and endanger you. In today's economy, you cannot afford it. When you have limited margin, you do not date for potential. You date for demonstrated load-bearing capacity. Love does not make someone responsible. Responsibility makes love survivable. Your job is not to hate men. Your job is to protect yourself, your time, your finances, your nervous system, and your children. The world is too expensive for romantic illusions. Alignment must happen before exposure. And if a man cannot handle clarity, he is not safe to build with. That is the standard. So here's the bottom line, stripped of romance and excuses. Deferred commitment is not responsibility. Compliance is not care. And minimum effort is not integrity. Oh my goodness. All right. So clarity is not cruelty. Standards are not hostility. And protection is not too much to ask for before exposure. If a man cannot tolerate clarity, he is not safe to build with. That's not bitterness. That is reality. So that is the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. Feel free to leave your comments on your thoughts and feelings. This certainly was geared towards women. Obviously, I've got like 20 different series going on here on my channel. So I will be managing the comments. I understand that I have a diverse group watching these videos for different reasons due to having multiple series going on. I do demand that you be respectful and be mature in each conversation. So, anyways, I will see you in the next video, and do take care. Protect yourself out there.